Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, shareholder and consultant here at Boomer Consulting. And with me today is Amanda Wilkie. Hi, Amanda. Thanks for being on this episode of the podcast.
Jon, you know I always love spending time with you, and just based on how much fun our conversation was before you hit record, I can't wait for this conversation today. So
Yes,
happy to be here.
I'm glad we didn't click record on our previous conversation, but no, it's always a pleasure to speak with you as well. We have a really interesting topic, and you work with firms and have for a while in the area of process improvement. And two kind of key words that always come up in process improvement is consistency and efficiency. And now we are seeing more and more firms focus on efficiency and consistency within the area of CAS, client accounting services, client advisory services. And so that's what I want to talk about today. And so my first question for you, Amanda, is why is it important for firms to really think consistency and efficiency when it comes to advisory services and accounting services?
Yeah, and this is a conversation that we have all the time, Jon. And I think there's sometimes a misconception. Everyone wants to be efficient and effective, but you do want your processes to be efficient. You want to be able to achieve things as easily as possible, with as few steps as possible, but you also really want them to be consistent. And the reason you want to strive for consistency is, well, there's a couple of reasons. One is it can speed things up just because there are fewer points where you actually have to stop and make a decision of what comes next. If you have a lot of different processes, or if your process diverges quite a bit, then you spend a lot of time just asking yourself, what happens next? What do I do now? Which direction do I go with this or with that? So being consistent can streamline your processes and speed things up, so you actually get the work out the door a lot faster. But that's from the process side of my brain. I also focus a lot on technology. And so you want consistency when it comes to your processes, because that allows you to leverage technology better. And specifically with things like automation. Firms are really looking for, ways to not only streamline, but ways to build capacity, ways to reduce defects or reduce errors in the work that's being done. And you can do that by building a consistent process, and that's going to make it much easier to automate that process where you can, of course. So that's always my spiel on consistency and why it's important in process improvement.
Yeah, and every firm we speak with, they talk a lot about scaling. We need to scale, we need to scale. And a lot of it is coming from just this area, the CAS area, of they've got a taste of how much their clients like these services, how profitable they can be, how important they are to their clients' success, and they want to add that on. One question off the cuff here, Amanda, is you think about this efficiency, consistency, scaling within CAS. Do you see that's why a lot of firms are looking to niche in this area?
Well, I think that firms are starting to really see the opportunity. Yes, you can do the tax, you can do the audit, but there's a lot of opportunity around advisory services. So when you say CAS, whether you're talking about advisory services or client accounting services, either one, there's a lot of opportunity in those areas. So part of CAS, especially client accounting services, is still very transactional in nature. And so those are things, any process that is very transactional, there's technology out there that can automate it. There's technology out there that can help it become more scalable. And that's why we're hearing that word scalability a lot. And my answer for that is always technology. But what will happen, like you said, John, people are getting a little taste of advisory services and they get excited about advisory services. Well, you have to create capacity to to take on those new services, to develop the new services. So when you want to scale, when you want to build capacity, you can look at the technology to help build that capacity and to be more scalable. That's going to free up that time for you to work on some of those more exciting advisory service type of engagements, the things that you don't even know that your clients need yet. The things that you really uncover when you start spending time with them, building the relationships, finding out, what really makes their business tick, what makes them tick as business owners, what their goals are, their personal goals as well as their professional goals. And those are the things, that relationship is something that isn't necessarily consistent client to client. It's not something that can be automated. So you want to use consistency and technology to create as much capacity as possible so that you can focus in those areas that can't be automated. And that's the people side of, of the business and of client accounting services, or excuse me, client advisory services.
Yeah, and the word there is capacity. It's all about creating capacity to offer more of those higher level services, right? Maybe it's services that is more interesting for your staff to work on and and that your clients are willing to pay more of. And so I love that you were highlighting that word capacity
And John,
throughout there.
I can't tell you how many conversations I've had lately about capacity. Not just from the Great Resignation and the talent wars and everything out that we're hearing, but everyone's concerned about capacity as we're trying to go into 2022 and have a better idea of how we can manage in this new world that we're living in now, and having all of these different priorities, some personal priorities, some professional priorities. So capacity is something that I know we're having a lot of conversations about. So yeah, it's important to think about how are you going to build capacity, because you can't just say, hey, let's start a new CAS service line and have it happen overnight. You have to have a process around it. You have to have process improvement around it. You have to have technology around it. You have to have leadership around it. But you can't do any of those things if your staff doesn't have the capacity to build that from the ground up. So
Yep.
capacity is definitely something that I think we'll all be talking about more in the years to come.
So let's say our listeners are convinced. They're like, yep, Amanda's describing my firm. Amanda's describing the opportunity we have. What are some recommendations you have that you've seen firms kind of approach this, actually gain capacity in this area? What solutions, recommendations do you have for them?
Yeah. Well, John, we always want to look at cloud-based technologies. That is one that is definitely going to be more scalable than having technology in your own environment. So I would definitely look at cloud-based technologies, things that are going to easily integrate with each other. So applications that will easily integrate with each other. I mentioned leadership. Your leadership really has to be on board. They have to be bought in. They have to be dedicated. They have to give the support that's needed to start a new CAS service line. But then it does come down to process and process improvement. So, build your process, outline your process, figure out, let's talk about what's working well, what we can change, what needs to change, why we need to change, why it will be better. And you need to make sure that you're focused on process improvement, continuous process improvement. So it's not just one and done. You really do have to build a culture of continuous improvement. And John, that's something that, we love talking to firms about. I love talking to firms about the integration of process and technology. We love talking to firms about the integration of talent and process, and how all three of those things, process, talent, and technology, can really be that three-legged stool that supports your firm and the growth and the success of your firm. So one of the first things I would recommend doing, Jon, is reach out to one of us here at Boomer, and let's start having some conversations about how process and technology and leadership, growth, all of those things, how we can help with help in all of those areas.
Absolutely. All right. That's great, Amanda. As always, it's great to have you on the podcast. So thanks for making yourself available. And for those listening, if you like topics like this, we release new episodes every Tuesday morning. And each week we kind of rotate the theme. One week it might be technology related or process related. Next week it might be talent or leadership or growth, and everything in between. But the common theme among those various areas is that these are critical to your firm's success. So we like to keep these conversations relevant and short. So please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. And Amanda, thanks again.
Thank you, Jon.